Hi there and welcome to this week's vlog, and today is a very special day for me and my wife Sue because it is the 47th anniversary of the date we got married. I remember that day distinctly. We got married in the village church where Sue lived at that time with her parents. It was a freezing cold day. It's pretty cold today, but it was much colder then. There was snow on the ground. And one of the funny things was that afterwards, when we came out and were taking photographs, by the time it came for the photographers to say, now gather all your friends and we'll take a photograph of you all together, a lot of them were no longer there. They'd gone off to the village hall where the refreshments, the meal was going to be served because it was so cold. But there we go. Anyway, I've been thinking about marriage because one of the interesting aspects of marriage, or the relationship that God intended for us in marriage, is that the Bible on a number of occasions speaks about marriage as a kind of metaphor for the relationship between God and his people. I've been thinking about what are the key ingredients. How come it is that Sue and I are still married and committed to each other, still in love, 47 years after we first stood before God in that church and made our commitment to each other? What is it that's held us together? Because by no means has it always been easy. There have been some significant bumps along the road, sometimes when we fell out, and like I guess any relationship, you suffer highs and lows. So what's kept us together? Well, I think one of the key areas is that commitment before God, that we stood before God and we made our promises to each other, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse. And so in the worst times, when there is that temptation, let's just give up, let's just call it quits. No, because we've made a commitment before God. We've tried to make each other a priority and a commitment to faithfulness to one another, to the exclusion of everyone else. And I asked Sue what she thought were the keys, some of the keys that have kept us together all these years, and she said tolerance. We tolerate each other's foibles and weaknesses and failures. Commitment before God, as I've said. The fact that we realise that we are better together than we are apart. Sometimes we find each other a bit of a pain, but we realise that we have something special, our relationship. And I think the support and care and love of our friends and families over the years has been so important too. And the fact that we've got 3 great children and 6 wonderful grandchildren, that means so much to us. So how does that fit in with what the Bible talks about marriage as that metaphor for God's relationship with his people? Well, all through the Bible we see that God is faithful, despite the fact that so often we, his people, are unfaithful. Paul writes to Timothy, his second letter, and chapter 2, he says, if we are unfaithful, he, God, remains faithful, because he cannot deny who he is. God is a faithful God. One of my favourite of the old hymns is that hymn, great is thy faithfulness. Oh God, my Father. I remember singing that, or it was sung at my dad's funeral, and it was a very emotional time for me, and I was missing my dad greatly. And we come to that line in that hymn where it says, all I have needed, thy hand has provided. And I couldn't sing because of the emotion, but I just thought, God, I can't sing that because it's not true. I haven't got my dad. And God said to me, I felt him say to me, but I am your loving heavenly Father, and I am with you. You have me. And that's always stuck with me. So God remains faithful even when we are unfaithful, because there is with God forgiveness. And I'm sure that the willingness to forgive is vital in not just in marriage, but in any relationship. In fact, a lot of what we say about marriage, we could equally apply to a relationship between another family member or a friend. That commitment to love, to forgive, to accept each other as we are, not to want to change the other person, but to accept them as they are. And I think also pray for them. I pray every day, every night before I go to sleep for my family. And I'm sure our prayers for our family have a powerful effect. God uses those prayers. So I am utterly blessed that Sue. I should tell you, when I first met Sue, a lady, a Methodist deaconess, a dear friend of ours who died a few months ago, she formed a little group in her home for young people, and Sue and I were two of the youngsters at that time who she invited, and we'd never met before, but very soon I felt so attracted to Sue. I just fell in love with her, and over the next month and couple of years I asked her on several occasions to marry me, and she always turned me down, but I was persistent, and eventually she said yes, and I'm so pleased. I think she maybe sometimes wondered whether she made the right decision, but I'm so glad that we made that commitment. We stood before God and said, yes, we're committed to each other for the rest of our lives. And isn't it wonderful that God remains utterly committed to you and to me, despite our unfaithfulness at times, despite the deliberate disobedience at times, despite who we are. He knows our weaknesses, and yet his love is amazing. His grace, his forgiveness comes flowing towards us, and he calls us into a relationship of love with him, a commitment to him. And right at the end of the Bible, there is the picture of Jesus Christ returning to claim his bride, the bride that is his church, and that great marriage in heaven between Christ and his church is a wonderful picture, and that's something that we can be part of if our lives are committed to Jesus, if our trust is in him. So whether you're married or not, I just pray God blessing upon you and upon your relationships, your friendships, and above all your relationship with God. He loves you. He's so gracious, and he wants you to know more and more of his love day by day. So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.